Hi, everybody. I hope everybody is having a nice July. And
We hope you had a fun and safe July 4th and that our Canadian viewers had a great Canada Day on July 1st. Today we are here to review Matthew Perry's memoir, Friends, Lovers, and a Big Terrible Thing. We just finished discussing the book with our friend Sonia, and we were going to just share our thoughts that we all had together on the book. Um,
after this video, if you subscribe and leave a comment, we would love to hear if you read the book, if you had any other opinions that we were not aware of.
okay. So, what is one thing that you learned about Matthew Perry that you never knew?
I never knew Matthew Perry too much before I started seeing Friends, but after I had most of the book jotted down and read, I really learned that he was a struggling addict and he really had some personal problems. So I can relate to when I hear about drama from celebrities like that.
So, one interesting thing that I never knew about Matthew Perry, besides his addiction problem, was that he was really good at tennis. Because he mentioned that he he was really good at tennis, and he was really good enough to be in the Olympics almost. So that was pretty impressive. Regarding the substance use disorder, so as I have mentioned in many videos on my YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to, by the way, um, I grew up watching Friends. I watched the whole series through its original run from 1994 to 2004, from ages 10 to 18. And at the time that I was originally watching it, I was totally oblivious to anything regarding what was going on behind the scenes. So I didn't even know anything about substance use disorder aside from the plot line in the one with Russ with Monica's boyfriend, Fun Bobby. That was the only brief mention I had heard about substance use disorder. And as we discussed in our last video, where we did a comparison about different TV episodes that discuss this topic, we have mentioned that Friends really missed the boat in their representation of substance use disorder. This episode came out before Matthew Perry's disorder was really evident throughout the various episodes, because during during the rest of the series you can see how his weight fluctuates based on his drug use and alcohol use. So in the Friends episode, the one with Russ, um, when Fun Bobby is sober, he's talking about how the hardware stores in the village are not open past 2 a.m. And then after he leaves to go home, Chandler basically says, he basically calls him ridiculously dull Bobby. And the worst part about that episode for me was the fact that they referred to Bobby as Fun Bobby because he was drunk. I didn't. I think that was very rude of the Friends producers to do, and if they could go back and fix that, like, Friends will never be able to be aired again, of course, because Matthew Perry was dead. But if is dead, so they cannot recreate such an iconic show with one cast member missing. But if they could go back in time to fix that based on what Matthew Perry went through, I really don't think they would have even had that plot line in that episode, the one with Russ. Two episodes that we have watched that handled substance use disorder well, that Friends really should have learned from, were The Golden Girls, High Anxiety, and Family Ties, Say Uncle. Those
Both of those episodes on those classic NBC sitcoms really had a way of teaching people and viewers about the dangers of what some can go overboard if they don't handle it correctly enough. And what Gene meant was Friends didn't handle it quite the same way.
If Matthew Perry was still alive, what is one thing you would ask him?
You know, if Matthew Perry was still alive today in person, and if we really had a visit with him around in Portland, I would probably say to Matthew, I do adore how you made us laugh. Plus, I also enjoy your speeches and your personality. I mean, the many fans that he made, they just want to look on him on the bright side and not think about him the other way around, what he was going through.
So, back last fall, right before Matthew Perry died, I saw a post on Instagram of upcoming musicals that are going to be coming out on Broadway in the future. And one of those musicals that was proposed to be coming out was a musical based on his movie 17 again. And if I could ask him anything, one thing would be if he would be reprising his movie role on Broadway. And secondly, I would actually ask him what his experience was like working on Fool's Russian with his dad, John Bennett Perry, and if there were to be a sequel made to that movie, what would things be like for Alex and Isabel as parents, and would Alex's relationship with his parents improve?
That's a good question. I think if we could hear from you viewers, you can leave us them in the comments.
I would really appreciate the part about Fool's Russian too, because I'm working on a fan fiction in honor of Matthew Perry about how he develops a father-daughter relationship with his child. So yes, please leave a comment below. Question 3. Did any specific passages in the book stand out to you, and why?
Well, in the book, when I was reading, it was kind of a little gauging for him to be thinking about when he was saying those things when he did. So sometimes the quotes from celebrities like him really do kind of describe what they really are.
The question here is, which specific quote that he said stood out to you?
Oh, the quote?
Yes. Were there any quotes that he said in the book that stood out to you, and why did it stand out so much?
Well, that's a harder question for me. I don't remember all the quotes.
Well, besides the quotes I mentioned in our discussion with Sonia, another quote that stood out to me was the scene where he mentioned that Jennifer Aniston confronted him on a set of Friends about
Mm-hmm.
his addiction problem. Like, I thought that was really powerful because it really showed how close they were as a cast and how they cared about each other.
Yes, I agree. They did care about each other on the set.
Um, and as I said in our meeting with Sonia just now, the other two passages that stood out to me were the banter between him and his dad on page 157, and um, the the thing that he said about Fool's Russian being his best movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to see further commentary on my favorite quotes from Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, please click the link to my video in the description box below. Because
Okay.
uh,
Thank you, Gene.
the next question is, what is one thing that you learned about Matthew Perry that you never knew?
Well, one thing I didn't know about Matthew Perry as I was reading the book was didn't know that he could play tennis. And since he moved to California, I didn't know that he was coming from Canada. I would say the change in different countries, especially going to LA, that's a hard transition.
I would agree, and he had to do that at a really, really young age too.
He did.
Um, so for me, um, he made a bet with Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis losing that bet led to his guest star 3 episode arc on Friends, where he played Paul Stevens, the father of Ross's student Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Bruce in that scene. In our discussion with Sonia, I was explaining to her that those episodes are hard for me to watch now, not just because of Matthew Perry being dead, but
But Bruce
but
Willis,
more prominently, Bruce Willis having dementia and him probably not remembering even being on such an amazing show, and it just hurts my heart knowing the pain that the families of these 2 celebrities are going through. Matthew Perry's family with losing their son, and Bruce Willis's family with dealing with the dementia, because I have I know how Bruce Willis's family feels because I had 2 grandmothers pass away from Alzheimer's slash dementia.
and I had my grandmother do the same way.
Um, and then um, other 2 other things that were interesting to me that I never knew about Matthew Perry was that he dated Julia Roberts, and that led her to guest starring on Friends. And one fun fact is that I actually went to high school with Julia Roberts' second cousin, and we always used to give him a hard time and tease him about getting free passes to movies because he was related to her. I don't know if I'm going to see him in my reunion next week. I hope I do, because that's always a fun thing to bring up to talk to him about, but I don't know if I'm going to get to see him.
Should we go
Um,
on to the next
the
question?
next question is, have you found Friends more difficult to watch since Matthew Perry died? No.
No, no, no. I think it's. Do you have any favorite Chandler moments from
Oh, do you have
Friends?
any favorite Chandler moments? Did you have any favorite Chandler moments?
I don't know what my exact favorite moment on Friends was, but I just like when he was standing up for himself. And I think I remember one scene where he and Matthew LeBlanc's character, Joey, they were watching an episode of Wheel of Fortune. And then they mispronounced it as Count Rushmore, Mount Rushmore.
That's a good one. I mean, my favorite episode with the whole ensemble cast together is when they're getting ready for Ross's work dinner and they're having trouble getting out of the apartment, and Joey and Chandler are fighting over the chair cushion or whatever, and then they go to get changed, and Chandler has no issues with getting changed, but then Joey comes into the apartment wearing all of Chandler's clothes and saying, "Could I be wearing any more clothes?" Like, that is one of my favorite episodes in the whole series, besides when Monica and Chandler get engaged, when Monica and Chandler get married. Um, my top, I'm running through my top 4 Chandler moments, which are the Chandler and Monica's engagement, Chandler and Monica's wedding, Chandler's speech to Erica, who was played by Anna Faris, about Monica being a mother without a baby. Excuse me. And them adopting the babies in the finale. Oops, this keeps shutting off.
Okay, do we have the next question ready?
The answer, yeah, it's, do you know anybody who has substance use disorder that might be able to gain knowledge from this book? And I don't.
No, I don't think I remember anyone who has substance use disorder too. But I also wanted to ask you, Janine, why do you find Friends more difficult these days now that Matthew Perry is gone?
Why do I find Friends more difficult to watch?
Yeah.
because I'm still sad that he's gone, and I have been dealing with grief for 9 months, or almost 9 months. As his co-stars and family have been too. Like,
Mhm.
I miss him. I didn't know him personally, but I feel like I got to know him through Chandler's character and all of the characters that he played in his movies and his character that he played on the Odd Couple show.
Right.
Um,
All
and
right, we just have a couple more questions.
um, so now we're gonna talk about the TV shows and episodes that we have watched that has Matthew Perry in them. That we have. Those are what the last two questions cover: the TV shows and movies that we have watched, that have him in them. What are your favorite movies that have Matthew Perry in them?
My favorite movie with Matthew Perry, I think, has to be the Ron Clark story because it's based on a real story about this teacher who went to the Harlem part of New York to group with a set of fifth graders who was down at the bottom of the class and misbehaving. And then it turned into a group where they become a part of history.
So yes, that is one of my favorite movies too. One of my favorite scenes in it is when they're rapping about the U.S. presidents, because I did a similar thing for a project for middle school English class where I rapped about the parts of speech.
Mhm.
And then, as we have discussed before in our serious issues in the media series, we're going to be discussing this movie again, and I'm not sure what benefit that will really serve. We could just talk about it now. So, the serious issue that this movie deals with is numerous ones, but one specific one that we found important that was kind of glossed over was abusive parents, because um, one child who has Mr. Clark as a teacher has a very abusive father, and he ends up going to live with the principal because he gets thrown out of his house in the scene where the rest of the kids are going to go see Phantom of the Opera. Um, and I just feel like that scene was one of the most powerful scenes in the whole movie, and they never really went into what happened to the dad and if he got charges pressed against him for being
Child neglection.
not child neglect, child abuse, because he beat his kid because he was trying to show that he had artistic talent, like because he did a mural on his bedroom wall of the Phantom of the Opera mask, and he really got the dad had an alcohol problem for one thing, and that's what made him so abusive, that he was always drinking and not really paying attention to his kid and not really caring. So when the kid, I don't remember the kid's name, but when he expressed that he had a talent in art, his dad didn't appreciate him and beat him up and threw him out of the house. So they really, the directors of that, I know that the movie is mostly about Mr. Clark, but I really wish they would have focused just a tiny bit more on the abusive parent situation and told us what ended up happening to the dad, because I really hoped that he went to jail, but nothing was ever said. So,
He was the only family who, what you would call, I think, what's that word? Disorganized or dysfunctional.
dysfunctional.
Right. But another movie that I think Ron Clark, I mean Matthew Perry, deserves a lot of credit for is Fools Rush In, where he stars with Salma Hayek.
Yes. I love that movie. It is one of my favorite movies with him in it. And Miss Mojo said in their video that they didn't have good chemistry together. But do you disagree with that? Because I do.
It is hard to say whether the chemistry was kind of in their favor or not. But I think when you see a title like that, I think going into True Love kind of happened too fast, because the good thing about when you have a couple, it's learning in the long term about what love and support really is. Plus, getting to know members of your family quite well.
Yeah, and I mean, I see where you're coming from about Isabel and Alex rushing into their relationship. Um, I mean, and they rush into their marriage because he gets her pregnant. That's the whole thing that spurs their relationship in the first place, and why they have to fake date because they're pregnant. Um, and my favorite quote in the movie that he says is, um, now I need to look it up because I can't remember it off the top of my head, and that's bad because I've done pictures of it for art class too. Um, okay, let's see. IMDb. Fools Russian. Oops. There it is. Right. Quotes. We need quotes. You are everything I never knew I always wanted. Okay, and one last thing we wanted to talk about in this video is the episode of Cougar Town that we just watched yesterday or the day before, called Like a Diamond. So Cougar Town was a show that Courtney Cox was on after Friends ended. It aired on ABC from 2009 to 2015.
And in many of the episodes, Courtney Cox not only was star on, but she also directed.
And the episode we wanted to mention tonight in this video that honors Matthew Perry is Like a Diamond, which is the second episode of season 5. In this episode, Matthew Perry plays a rich businessman named Sam, who's Courtney Cox's character, gets into a car crash with. And there are two references to Friends in this episode. The first one is in the scene where Sam asks out Jules for coffee, because basically that makes a reference to the finale of Friends where Chandler gets the final line. In this final exchange of dialogue in the last one, which is the Friends finale, um, Rachel asks Chandler and Monica if they want to go get coffee before they go to their new house in Westchester. And Chandler says, sure, where? And basically, Sam's character asks Jules to go out for coffee and says, where do you want to go out for coffee? And basically, they fake date for like one day, and Jules neglects to tell Sam that she's married, which makes her husband Grayson kind of pissed off, and I would be pissed off too if I was Grayson. So there is this really fun flash mob scene where where
They play Hooked on a Feeling.
they play Hooked on a Feeling, and at the very end of the flash mob, Matthew Perry is in this red marching band leader uniform, and he basically gets on one knee and asks Jules to marry him. And I mean, you can really see how much chemistry they still had together in this episode from when they played Chandler and Monica. I mean, I certainly noticed it, and I've seen this episode twice in my rewatch of this show. So I was really glad to be able to see the fact that they still had so much great on-screen chemistry. And then in the blooper reel of the end credits, Matthew Perry basically refers to Courtney Cox's Jules by her friend's character's name, Monica, instead of calling her Jules, which I thought was a fun nod to Friends. So,
So that basically takes care of Matthew Perry and the memoir. So if you've read the book before, please be free to share some more thoughts or something
so
like that.
what would you give Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing for a rating? It can be hard to rate memoirs because you're supposed to keep a subjective opinion about other people's lives. But if you could give it a rating on Goodreads, what would you give
On
it?
Goodreads, I gave this book 10 stars, a 7.
What? Goodreads only goes up to 5. I think
Oh,
you're
okay.
thinking of IMDb that
I
has
was thinking
10
of
stars.
IMDb. I think this gets a 3.5 rating.
Is that because you weren't as familiar with Friends as I was?
Pretty much. What did you
Yes.
give it?
Me and Sonia gave the book 5 stars.
Okay.
So if you could give an average rating for the three of us, what would you give it?
I think overall for the average rating, it's about 4 and a third stars.
So
That's how you average it.
4.5.
4.5.
Thank you for tuning in, and tune in to our July entertainment review wrap up on August 4th at 10 a.m. Have a great rest of your July and beginning of August, everybody, and we will see you August 4th.
All right.